learning every day. An open mind can unlock any door. Maybe you just want to know the score. Log on. StKermit.com.
All right, after a couple weeks hiatus, St. Kermit is back. We're on episode 2. It is the 30th day of September, and we are here live-ish with George Brooks and Tony Lorenzen, and a good afternoon to both of you.
Hey, Jim. Good to be back again. Hey, George.
What's good?
All right, so today's topic is banking. And it's almost feel like one of those John Oliver shows where you say, what are you talking about? But we are all somewhat inspired by Elizabeth Warren's takedown of the CEO of Wells Fargo recently, and the whole issue about whether or not banks and the people, particularly who operate those banks, are in charge of those banks, should be taking some legal responsibility, true responsibility for the problems that we see in the banking system. And I think we all agree that what Wells Fargo did in the scandal of creating phantom accounts in order to raise the profile of people in individual branches was a bad thing. And again, go see what Elizabeth Warren did in her committee meeting. But let's talk about the issue of the sort of the big banks and the advantages that they have and the problems that they raise. So Tony, I want to go to you because you. When we were chatting earlier, you were sort of raising almost a spiritual perspective on this. So,
well, yeah, being a minister, one of the things I've been thinking about as I watch Strumpf do his Drump for whatever banker routine he's going through to lay his responsibility aside is that I wonder how much our desire to have a, say, religiously or value-neutral public space ends up reinforcing this kind of behavior. There was a time where we were a lot more comfortable with religious discussion, ethical discussion in the public sphere, but now in the interest of not pushing your religion on anybody and proselytizing, separating church and state, we free people from being harassed by religious dogma and talk and persecution that they may not want. But I think we also lose a little bit of the way religion and values were discussed more openly and freely. And when we take that discussion of religion and values and ethics completely out of the public sphere, or try to do that, we lose those public reminders all the time that kindness is important, that you don't cheat people, that you don't swindle people, that you don't steal from people. And we think that we're creating a neutral public space, this value-wise neutral public space, but we're not. The values that are there, as we were talking before we went on the air, are the values of capitalism, where the highest value is just make a profit. And you can make a profit if you cheat, just don't get caught. And even if you get caught, we value some people so much that we won't even punish you that much if you get caught. So I wonder if this whole missing ethics in public life a little bit has led to a sense of powerlessness over this and a sense of freedom for those who would behave this way, that there's really no harm going to come to them much even if they do get caught. Contrast, say, something like Iceland, where after the meltdown in 2008, they let the banks fail and they put the bankers in jail, over 24 of them now at this point.
Yep.
Now, granted, their whole economy is the size of Boston more than the size of the United States, so it's a bit of a different animal, but the values there were decidedly different that were in play. And I just wonder how much of that, as we continue down this capitalistic road, leads us to where we're at with stuff like this.
And certainly, those of us who are not in those powerful positions, if we see people who get forced into hearings at Congress and may get slapped on the wrist, but nothing happens, I mean, how powerful or more likely powerless will we feel? That, these people did bad things, yet, they go home to their nice houses and their nice cars, what have you. Big freaking deal. And they don't feel any remorse. And I think that goes to the issue you're talking about. The CEO's testimony, it's almost as if he just didn't care, and he probably didn't. And that's, I think, almost what's more upsetting than anything else, even the bad actions taken by the bank.
Well, and you said about, waiting for the legal consequences, right? Is there some legal consequences? Well, legality and law is about the lowest common denominator you have ethically and morally. Some can be very legal and very unethical.
Are you saying anything about my profession, Tony?
No, some of my best
another
friends
show.
are lawyers. Some of my best friends are lawyers. When we were talking before this, Tony really made me sit back and think about it. It's funny you talk about religion. In Islam, for example, usury is a mortal sin. That's right up there with adultery. You do not charge excessive interest. Islamic banking system is a nominal level of interest. And then, after that, but you don't check cashing places, same day loan places, they don't fly in an Islamic country. I'm not sure what some of the people screaming Sharia law would think of that one, but
Right.
I thought I'd put that in there. But it just shows that there's this moral underpinning in any faith where you don't screw people over. It's not the right thing to do. Buddhist, I dated a Buddhist once. They basically have the same type of belief system. So I think some of this is certainly home training. Some of this could be ethics training that should be delivered on a college level and a university level. I know that after Enron, there were some major changes made to some of the big business schools because of the accounting system. I remember once I was taking an accounting class at Northeastern, and I got frustrated with GAAP principles, and I asked the professor, where's the line between a generally accepted practice and embezzlement? I don't get it. She was not pleased with my question. My grades suffered accordingly. The other thing I was thinking about this is, besides the fact, like I mentioned before, once upon a time, people robbed banks, not the other way around. We have this, if you look at the Henry Ford ethic, Henry Ford made a conscious decision to pay his workers more than he needed to. And that had a profound impact on our country. I mean, I was just thinking about the last 2 minutes. My mother's father and my mother's mother moved from Georgia to Detroit, partly because of plentiful jobs and the ripple effect. Ford paid better, so GM had to pay better, Packard had to pay better, blah, 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 blah. So half of my family is part of the Great Migration that was based on an ethical business decision. The second part was, I'm not going to charge top dollar for the Model T. I want my car affordable so everybody can buy one. And that had a salutary effect on the nation in general, because now you took something that could have been a luxury product that could have maximized profits in the capitalistic model, Tony, but instead became, what do we call it, democratizing America, and we turned it into a commodity. And of course, it made Ford a lot of money. And this is the interesting thing. Why not make more money doing the right thing? You talked about popcorn. If you sold food for a decent price in a theater, I'd buy more of it. The fact that movie dates require me to put stuff on layaway, I mean, damn near, that's an issue, okay? And you would think that one theater chain would go, damn, why don't we charge $4 for popcorn, $3 for a soda? Let's charge some reasonable rates. We'll make our money on volume. Instead of making me pay $15 for simple meals, along with $15 per ticket, which, becomes, movie dates are no longer cheap dates, right? Redbox is a cheap date now. So I don't want to go aground of it, but I've come to agree with you that there has to be some sort of moral imperative. I think one of the solutions is to use capitalism against itself. Mm-hmm. Capitalism responds to competition, responds to pressure. Provide an alternative that makes people do the right thing, whether they want to or not.
Yep.
Let me offer this path, and I know we didn't talk about this earlier, but it comes to mind. Over the past 10 years or so, I can't remember the exact amount of time, there have been certain forms of legal entities that have been established in a number of states around the country. In Massachusetts, it's known as a B corporation. Another form is known as a triple LC. And what they are for-profit entities that can formally establish a social purpose as part of their being. And in fact, in Massachusetts, you'd have to have a specific member of the board of directors whose job it is to specifically guide the social purpose. And the difference between a B corporation and a regular corporation is that the shareholders cannot claim malfeasance by the board of directors if they take an action that is not necessarily a profit maximizing action. They could say, we want to have a social purpose, and we're going to spend some of our money that might otherwise be profits in order to support that. And I don't know to what extent B corporations or triple LCs have taken off, but I think in a community where people are looking for that combination of ethics along with a for-profit motive, I mean, it'd be great to see some banks set up as B corporations, or perhaps not triple LCs, but as entities that specifically say, we're not spending generating every dime simply for profit. We have a social mission, and I think that would be in certain quarters of this country, a very viable business model that may generate a volume that could sustain a business very well, including a bank.
I think you need to see that across a lot of industries, but I think hand in glove with that, unfortunately, is accountability. And
Sure.
when I hear the word account, and something I've always thought about when it comes to accountability, when I hear accountability mouthed by most people, it reminds me of the scene in Shawshank Redemption when Morgan Freeman asked the parole officer, "What do you mean about rehabilitation?" And the guy gives the standard day. He's like, "No, that's a made up word. You're bullshitting us. Stop." Right. And accountability works that way because we say we want accountability. Accountability means do your job. If you don't, we'll find somebody to do it better. If you cross the line, you get nailed. Simple. Done. In professional sports, you see accountability. Throw enough interceptions, you're on the bench. You can't handle the bench, you're out the league. Right. When you're not accountable to your bank, to your airline, to your police department, to the public, there should be consequences and repercussions. We're in a culture, like you said, Jim, where if you have enough power, and police unions have boatloads of power, so there's very seldom accountability or repercussions for bad decisions. If you're too big to fail bank, there are consequences and repercussions. A failure of the Obama administration, maybe their biggest one, and I'm saying this as a supporter of the man, was in the first 6 months of his administration when they could have held some people to account for the meltdown, and he gave them a pass, essentially. Thank you, Tim Geithner. And it set a tone and they weren't even grateful. They criticized him bitterly after this, remember, because he said some harsh things to them. So it's no wonder you see this lack of accountability, and why I think the Wells Fargo CEO strolled into that meeting with Elizabeth Warren thinking, I'll do the song and dance. I think he felt like he had to be there for PR purposes, but it's like, hey, look, that was the lower level people. But the fact is, everything that went down, including the horrific foreclosure of all those cars against veterans who were deployed overseas,
right?
They had to come from pressure from above. You had people making $40,000 a year who, if they didn't do it, would probably get fired. They wind up getting fired anyway. Their bosses and bosses' bosses don't catch the heat for it. And then you got the CEO who's like 3 layers above them. Hell no, he's not going to feel like he's got any pressure or feel any need to be accountable or atone for it, because our culture in this country has kind of, you, Tony or Jim, you got to think of a better word, but I think we have become acclimated to the rich and powerful, rich or powerful, having a different set of rules from the rest of us. We just go, well, we need to get richer, so we don't have to be as accountable.
Yeah, we've kind of acquiesced to that reality without bothering anymore to say, well, wait a minute, that's so wrong. We need to do something about that. And I think that continues to get more and more pervasive. The accountability, one of the things as you're talking, George, I'm thinking about with the Wells Fargo thing is the people who lost their jobs for not meeting sales quotas for pulling this maneuver on people with these fake accounts. They're all suing Wells Fargo now for wrongful termination, but the whole accountability if you're powerful enough, gets shifted somewhere else. You move it around like a dice game, and it never lands on you. And then we reward. I mean, you got somebody running for president who's playing this game saying, yeah, shuffling the dice around, not paying my taxes, that makes me smart.
That was the most honest, ironic, it's the most honest thing I think he said during his entire campaign.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, one of the things I'll go back briefly to the Bernie Sanders part of the campaign this year. And I think he began to give some voice to folks who were feeling like they were being screwed. And I think the big challenge will be if Hillary Clinton gets elected. And the thing we need to hold her accountable for, now going back to that word, is to where she was saying, I'm going to pick up Bernie's mantle on some of these issues. We need to hold her to account to that. If she doesn't, we can't simply say, well, now she's president. The very same people who might vote for her in November need to, come January, say, this is what you said you would do it. And if she does, fantastic. I sit here, for better or for worse, still skeptical that will happen. We'll see. Just so we'll finish up. Any final thoughts here?
Yeah, I think one thing, join your local credit union. Find a credit union you like. There's one for everyone. I finally coerced my mother into joining a teacher's credit union. I was sub-teaching last semester, so I joined. I've been a member of Digital Credit Union for longer than I care to mention because I don't think I'm that old. But I'll say before I was born.
You were a baby when you joined, George.
There you go. I was a toddler, but credit unions are a wonderful alternate source to financing a car, financing a home, getting a credit card without a lot of hassle. And when you talk to people, they don't treat you like a bloodless automation or number or statistic. And I can give you more examples than we have time for of cases where credit unions are viable. Just set up a relationship. And I think if we had a drive and asked 2 million people to join a credit union and got half of them to move half of their money to a credit union, I think those $34 overdraft fees would mysteriously drop down. You'd probably get 2 or 3 more mulligans. You would see changes because I think the alternative, Tony, I don't want a national church and national morality established on any grounds, but we do want morality. We want people to do the right thing. If they can't do it from what's within, then bring pressure from without. And that's, to me, how you can make capitalism have a heart.
Yeah, and
make it profitable.
As you're saying that, I'm recalling the statement about the way to have a revolution is 1 million single acts of resistance.
Yeah.
1 million single acts of acting ethically forces the playing field to change. And when I hear you say that, it's exactly right. I think we have gotten to the place where people don't believe that their single acts of doing the right thing actually will add up and count.
I think that really boils it down, Tony. Don't be afraid to inquire about the ethics of the businesses that you do business with, and support the ones that are. You do that, at the very least, you can feel good about yourself. And if we do it collectively, maybe we make a change and make a difference here.
Indeed.
Gentlemen, good seeing you. Kermit, great to see you. And we'll be back again, hopefully next week, health permitting, and we'll talk about something else. Good to see you, gentlemen.
All right.
All right. Bye.